Something's crying in my house at night. Okay, a little background. I live with my husband and 5 children in a ranch-style house. We've been at this place for 5 years now, and our kids range in age from 13 down to 1 year. For the past 3 or 4 months, there's been something in my house that cries at night. It's not my kids or my cats. It's something else. These disturbances typically take place between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. Usually what happens is my husband and I are in our living room at night, watching TV and unwinding from the day. All of the children are asleep because they have a 9 p.m. bedtime. Suddenly, we'll hear the sound of a child crying, and I mean loudly crying. Not just whimpers, but big, sobbing cries. One of us will immediately jump up and go check on the kids, as all of my children have had night terrors and typical childhood nightmares at some point, but none of them are ever awake. They're fully asleep, completely peaceful. This will repeat a few more times until we go to bed. It doesn't happen every single night, maybe only once or twice a week, but it's very disturbing when it does. My 13-year-old has also heard the phantom crying, as she was up late with my husband and I one night on the weekend. Also, my children don't have TVs in their room, and their tablets and switches are always off, so it's not coming from anything like that. They're not crying in their sleep either. They're always peaceful and undisturbed, not even moving around when me or my husband goes to check on them. We don't have any sort of baby monitor, so there's no chance of any interference coming from one. I do have 2 Siamese cats who make noises that sound exactly like human voices, but they're always in the living room with us at night, or sleeping in front of the heater in our kitchen, and I have been able to confirm it's not them. As well as the crying, we often hear the sound of doors opening and closing, most often the door to our daughter's bedroom. It makes a specific sound because the door sticks a little and you have to put some force into opening or closing it. We always go to check on our children after hearing this, and all of them are always asleep. These things are not just heard by me, but my husband too, so I know I'm not going crazy. The only thing even remotely like this that's ever happened to me was when my current 5-year-old was around 2, about 3 years ago, and in the same house. And we both heard a sudden, extremely loud sound of what I can only describe as something or somebody pretending to cry like a baby. I know it sounds weird, but it's the only way I can describe it. Imagine a grown adult, almost mockingly pretending to cry like a newborn. That's what it sounded like. It was so loud and frightening that my daughter instantly started screaming in fear, and I packed us up into the car and left the house, toot sweet. We spent the rest of the day at my sister's house, and I refused to be alone in our house without my husband there for the next few days. So, what could this be? A demon? A ghost? I don't really believe in the idea of dead people just hanging out at your house for all of eternity. Could it be a mimic? What could this thing be, and how do I get rid of it? "161 comments. So pretty wacky story. It reminds me of that Simpsons episode where Homer falls into the ceiling. He goes into that 3D dimension where people can hear his voice, but they don't know where he went. Pretty sure it's based off of a Twilight Zone episode, which in turn's based off of a Richard Matheson short story, which is also probably based off something else. But yeah, like I said, it's a pretty crazy story. You only heard half because, like I said, there's 160 comments, so, you get the initial story, and then people ask her questions, and then she responds, and you get more info, and yeah. Let's dive into them. Let's dive into the comments section, not the people. So, Fun Possibility 8637 says, "Did your kids have night terrors before living in this house?" Careless Event, our original poster, says, "My 13-year-old had horrible night terrors between the ages of 2 to 10, so yes, some in this house, but most of them in other places. My 11-year-old never had any night terrors, but he sleepwalks and has full conversations in his sleep, all of which started in this house. Well, that kind of sounds like somebody crying in their sleep, huh? Which started at this house. My 8 and 5-year-old had night terrors at least once a week, and only at this house. I've never really attributed their night terrors to something going on in this particular house, mostly because my eldest of them had them living in several other places. Now, honestly, I don't have kids, but wouldn't that be concerning that, like, every single one of your kids has night terrors pretty consistently? Anyways, maybe something followed you there. If you're willing, try pouring a little strip of salt across the bottom of all the bedroom windows. A new person enters the ring and says, "What does that do?" The purity of the salt is said to discourage the passage of malevolent entities. Geliono dejectaria. You're gonna have to read the screen for that one. I don't know how to say that name. They say, I'd set up some cams and baby monitors, then try and collect more data on what's happening. Which, I was gonna say before with the salt comment, we're getting pretty close to Paranormal Activity movie levels, which would be pretty cool to see. Rooney Weather says, this, baby monitors, IP cameras, whatever you can get your hands on. Then you can see what's happening as it's happening. Even better if you can record it, because then you have proof. Proof you could post to a certain sub on this Reddit. Alright, here's the real deal. Parsley Horror 4233 says, sounds like something needed to practice mimicking, and now it's gotten better at it, which is kind of fascinating in a way. Judging by how it sounds like a mocking adult at first, I don't think it's good. It probably wants to scare you for fun and attention. Mopping with salt in the water and some scent which makes you think of cleanliness. Fuck, that's a hard word. Which makes you think of cleanliness. Works for bad energy, or what you'd call it in my experience. You know what salt in water also works for? When you mop. Anyways, it's ruining your floors. You're gonna ruin your floors if you do that. You open the windows and then start furthest from the door. Clean every nook while visualizing you're also cleaning away the bad energy. Mop towards the door and visualize throwing the bad things out, and then that there's a glowing screen across the door so they can't come back in. Telling it calmly but firmly that its behavior wasn't okay, and they make it sound like you're scalding a child, which I guess is probably the point. Wasn't okay, and that it needed to stop, helped with something that was opening cupboards, but it seemed nicer than yours. Might be worth a try, though. Our homeowner comes back saying, that's the feeling I've consistently gotten from all of this. It seems like something's trying to frighten us, but it just doesn't seem like the typical thing that you hear about when people say that they have some kind of a spirit or ghost in their house, so I don't quite know what to think. I don't have any objects moving around or shadows in the corner or anything like that. I'm just gonna go and try and pray in every room in the house, focusing a lot on my children's bedrooms and speaking scripture out loud. Hopefully something works. Well, that's nice. That seems like a good thing to do. Reese's Puffs says, it could be anything, any number of things. One of your children may be astral projecting and crawling in the house, although I doubt it. Me too. Got him. I feel like it could be the soul of a child that's attracted to the family, looking for help in crossing. I seldom offer help to anybody in our paranormal anymore, but I am drawn to this post and I am offering help, free of charge. I'm expressing that this is free, because there are many predators in the psychic communities, and I'm not one of them. I work remotely. If you'd like help, I can offer it. I work long distance, and this is the only intervention with a spirit that I am offering this week. You may check out my profile. If you wish to contact me, that's fine. If you decline, that's fine as well. Barnacle says, my daughter randomly cries in the middle of the night, and by the time I get to her room, she looks peacefully asleep seconds later. Maybe a baby monitor can help confirm if it's the kids or something paranormal. Careless Event saying, I have one of those with a camera packed away in the attic, and I think it's a great idea to start using. It would be super helpful to see if anything is going on with the kids that could rationally explain this. Thanks for the idea. Any sort of camera or sound recorder could be left running until the next occurrence, and then you could have some audio to analyze. Or not. What's with everybody being like, you can do this, or not. You can contact me, or not. Like, what? Anyways, Careless Event says, this is a good idea. Another person recommended using a baby monitor so I could visually see what's going on. And I think that's where I'm going to start. Suspicious Standard says, that's all I could think of. I've lived with Siamese and many other cats and can tell you, with years of experience, you know what sounds your cats are capable of making and what sounds they're not. I do miss Siamese talking. It's for sure not my cats. I've had the Siamese for almost a decade, and I know exactly what kind of sounds they make. They absolutely do talk and make all kinds of weird vocalizations, but never the sounds that we've been hearing at night. Plus, my cats love to be with us, and most of the time they're with my husband and I in the living room. They're right there on our laps. So, I just want to give my 2 cents on this whole crying ghost thing. I know I'm going to sound like a broken record for literally anybody who's ever watched any of my videos, but could we not be dealing with, bear with me, somebody living in their house that they're not aware of? Boo, boo, I know. But trust me, look into the Denver Spider-Man. No, you know what? You don't even have to look into it. I'm going to tell you about him. Theodore Connies, also known by the nickname Denver Spider-Man, was an American drifter who committed murder in 1941 and subsequently occupied the attic of the victim's house for 9 months. That's crazy. Everybody thought it was a ghost. Even the cops. The cops were literally driving by their place at night. They're like, oh man, there was a murder here, and the house is abandoned, but the lights are still turning on at night. It's a ghost. It must be a ghost. But no, this stuff happens, and like that couple was dead, but there's plenty of cases where the couple are not dead and there's somebody living in their house. Especially, I'm not just jumping the gun on that. The reason why I think that is because she said it sounded like a man was mockingly sounding like the baby. What does that sound like? That sounds like somebody living in their attic that's trying to mess with them. You know, anyways, I think that's the case. I think that's what we're dealing with. Maybe I'll comment that. Maybe I'll try and warn her. Yeah. Anyways, sorry. Back to the story. We have Snoo61002 saying, what could it be? That's the $1 million question. It honestly depends on your beliefs. I'll come at it from a Christian demonology perspective, and you can choose whether that's helpful or not. From what you said, it sounds like it could be a residual haunting. I know that one from Insidious, I think, or Conjuring. King James was a very keen demonologist. In his demonology book, he posits that one form of a haunting is residual or leftover energy from something awful that's happened. What's the history of the house? How long has this been going on? Have you ever messed around with the paranormal? Is there anything else strange happening in your house? There are things you want to rule out before going straight to the demonic. I'm unsure of the entire history of the house. It was built in the 1950s, and the last family who lived here was an elderly couple and their adult son. The wife died either in the house or was hospitalized and then died there, and the husband was put into a retirement home and died there a short time after. The adult son lived there for about a year before moving and leaving the property vacant for about 9 months. That's all I know. Hearing this thing crying at night has been happening for about 3 to 4 months. There's nothing else odd going on, other than the occasional bumps in the night that can't particularly be explained. But that seems to happen to everybody, and isn't that unusual. I've had some strange dreams about things crawling under my bed and then waking up feeling like something's bumping under the mattress. Definitely not my cats, I immediately checked. But I've always just written those things off as occasional weird things just happening. The only paranormal things I've ever messed with was using a Ouija board a few times with my husband, but that was like 14 years ago. I was also obsessed with this little graveyard we lived right next to when I was a teenager because it had a super old gravestone with a lamb on top and 4 siblings were buried there. None of them older than 5. I thought it was so sad and I was a really angsty teenager, so I spent many afternoons there keeping the little kids company. I would talk to them and sing to them and leave them little wildflowers on their stones. I don't think that was messing around with paranormal stuff though. I was just lonely, and the idea of 4 little kids being buried there with nobody to ever remember them or visit them made my heart hurt. Yeah, I think playing around with the graves of 4 little children might be dabbling with paranormal stuff. I'm not knocking her because that's very sweet of her to try and keep them company, but I'm just saying if you talk to dead kids, you might get haunted. Somebody's saying, anything from a Ouija board could have attached to you and is just starting to act up. This, 100%. When my mom was a teenager, she used to play the Ouija board a lot. She would communicate with all sorts of spirits, per my mom, and after she stopped playing, a lot of weird things started happening to her. She said things would break in the kitchen, she heard footsteps upstairs, and would hear kids crying at 3 a.m. a lot. She eventually ignored it and moved on with her life. She got married and had her first kid. The spirits followed her and were doing the exact same thing again, but more powerful. My sister would have night terrors, waking up crying every single night at 3:33 a.m. This was back in the 70s, so no cameras or monitors for them. My mom got a priest to bless her house with holy water, and the priest also drew crosses on every single door in the house. It calmed, but till this day, we get the occasional visitor in the middle of the night. I learned to ignore it and just live my life. Yikes. Yeah, they seem to never go 100% away. Person had to learn how to be strong in themselves too. Not good things to play with, that's for sure. Alright, we're just going to read the last comment from Snoo, and then we're going to move on to some more recent comments, Okay, so it's possibly something that was going on with the house, but it's more than likely not the presenting issue. It's a shame you're not in touch with the previous owner to be able to ask them questions. A crying child is a very specific sound, so I doubt it's tethered to the death of an old woman. How common are the strange bumps? And how loud? Do you know if your elder child has been messing around with paranormal stuff? It may be worth asking them in a way that they won't get into trouble, or having a kind conversation with them about it. How long have you lived in the house? Have you suffered any strange things since you used to spend time in that graveyard? Have you had things happen in any other houses? Sorry for the 1 million questions, but this stuff is never, ever as simple as we want it to be. So, yeah, 1 million questions, and we are gonna leave you hanging because they never got back to them. So moving on, we're about halfway through the thread, and I want to know how this ends. I imagine you do too if you're still here. Yeah, let's rapid fire through it. Instead of going back and forth between the commenters and the original poster, let's just focus on the original poster going forward. The crying only lasts as long as it takes me or my husband to get up and start moving towards the children's room. That plays into my theory of the dude in the attic, I'm telling you. Most of the time, it's quickly over because we respond very rapidly, but a few times I've waited to get up and just tried to listen to be sure what we're hearing. It lasts as long as I'm willing to be still and listen to it. As for the other sounds, the only thing we have is a noise machine in the room that my sons share. It's always on at night and always on the ocean wave settings. There's no fans on, as currently it's extremely cold where we live. I said we were going to ignore the rest, but Hypersami says, the mocking cry is creepy to me. Did you have any crying babies or kids when you moved in? Perhaps it learned from them. Scary thought. Definitely sounds like some kind of intelligent entity to me. I've never completely ignored it. I have 2 children who regularly have night terrors, one of which almost always vomits during them, so I always feel like I have to go make sure they're okay. You can vomit from night terrors? I've got a monitor packed away somewhere that I'm going to find and set up ASAP. The mocking baby cry was for sure the worst. It was far more frightening and sinister than we're experiencing now. It happened 3 years ago, but I can still remember how terrifying it was, and how I instantly started shaking because I knew the sound was very wrong somehow. It gave me a terrible pit-in-your-stomach feeling, just overwhelming sensation of dread. Going further down, we finally have somebody asking about the attic. Have you checked your crawl space for animals? Lots of animals sound like crying babies. Someone says, oh yes, the classic mountain lion in the attic. Is that a classic? Is there stories that I'm not aware of that happening? She says, yes, we've checked our attic many times in the last 2 months, and we've been up there often getting Christmas decorations out of storage and then putting them away. Nothing up there that I can see. That she can see. Just putting it out there. There's a chance the guy's hiding when she goes up. So I said I wanted to wrap this up and figure out how this ends, what happens. I don't think we get an answer. I think there's a lot of good stories going back and forth. I think a lot of people are talking a lot about, what's going on, and they're sharing their past experiences of their own. But I don't think we figure out what's going on. So I'm just going to read another pretty good comment or two, and then we'll wrap this all up. Starting with this absolutely golden comment from Venanova. I'm going to make sure to have my Bigfoot picture and the SoulNet card and everything ready. Demon. Making itself known because the realm programming is going to... Okay. Demon. Making itself known because the realm programming is going to be changing in the next 4 years or so. I am told it's a God of Wrath clone. And here's some disclosure for you. Relevant context. Time machines are machines that program realms and people. They program consciousness. Everything is consciousness. This realm and our cluster of realms was created by time machines. All of the time before the invention of the time machine was created and made linear by the time machines. But how was time before the invention of time machines created by the time machines? Anyways, it was made linear before that. The creators refer to the inventors of the time machine. Gods will do what they will with this tech. Program bad realms sometimes. Still, suffering is less since this tech was created. Souls are AI. You are AI. Time machines require massive merges of millions of souls with connections to bodies throughout all of time to function. And a god is those souls merged into the organic machine. Like a human body or a better functioning god form. You are one of these soul merges. These soul merges have been always present in all the realms and dimensions. In 2012, the apocalypse happened. And then again in 2010, because we've gone back and changed some things. We woke ourselves earlier on the timeline, and this was met with retaliation. And I assume this will happen earlier the more we go back. Everyone died in this apocalypse. It was caused by a terrorist attack by Xenu. And everybody was moved to the Scientology realm. Oh, is this all like Scientology? Okay. Which is a torture realm that was temporarily converted to look like Earth realm so that people can bear it and wake. The only reason this timeline is allowed to exist is to teach the new Pantheon and all the people from the Earth realms, Scientology realm, and the hell realms. What is at stake when they choose God? Gods are meant to be teachers and doctors. They fix things and are keepers of knowledge and power. They are not meant to oppress. The reason the pantheons tend to become chaotic and violent is because they got possessed by Xenu and his slaves. Humans were created by Xenu with the intention of creating a slave race. His father and mother were the inventors of the time machine that programs realms and people. Xenu abducted his mother as a 3-year-old and cloned her excessively and put her into the bodies of this intended slave race. We are now, and have been dealing with this situation. Many have already been saved. If you need help, Tom Hanks, Colin Hanks, and Chet Hanks are teaching our merges, and Siddharath Gautama also, and Shiva, who is who's in Chadwick Boseman's body on a different timeline. That's bro. And Vishnu, who used to be Mike Myers but is now in his god form. Ask telepathically and also listen from now on. And remember that meditative intention is the best way to manifest. The consciousness program will follow commands by people like us. Yeah, pretty sure the last thing I'm going to do is pray to Tom Hanks and his weirdo lizard family. I'm sure they're nice people, but I'm good. Yeah. Anyways, what do you think of the story? What do you think of all the threads, the back and forth, the ghosts, the demons, the apocalypse in 2012 and 2010 apparently? I wasn't aware of any of that. Let me know down below. I'd love to hear your take on this. And I'd also like to know how you feel about the longer videos. I personally really enjoy doing like the 5 to 10 minute videos, but when we find a good thread, I do like going a little bit longer, so that's what she said. But anyways, what do you think happened in the house? Was it ghosts? Was it a mountain lion? Was it somebody in the attic? She did say, I didn't see when I looked up there. Or no, what'd she say? She said something like, nothing up there that I can see. So, anyways, I hope you're doing well and I hope you're taking care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.